First Blast. Before becoming the classic X-Men leader, Scott Summers is just a lost teenager trying to figure out his own body. X-Men Apocalypse is set in the 80s and shows the beginning of several young versions of the characters. Here, Scott has absolutely no control over his powers. The scene starts in a classroom. The teacher is talking about Magneto's attack on the White House, an event shown in X-Men Days of Future Past. Meanwhile, Scott starts feeling something weird in his eyes, like it's a burning, a pressure. He can't even keep his eyes open. But then a classmate decides to turn his discomfort into provocation. He thinks Scott is winking at his girlfriend. Wrong read at the worst possible moment. Things heat up fast. Scott asks to leave and runs to the bathroom trying to hide. He literally can't open his eyes without feeling like something is about to burst out. The bully follows him and starts banging on the stall door, threatening, forcing his way in. And that's when everything explodes. Out of control, Scott fires off his optic blast for the very first time. The force is insane. The door gets destroyed, the walls crack, and the kid who was provoking him gets thrown across the room. Unlike previous versions of the character, here the origin is more accidental, more raw. The Green Fury. In Hulk, Bruce Banner is a scientist haunted by childhood trauma and experiments that altered his DNA. The scene where the bully gets what's coming to him happens when Glenn Talbot invades Bruce's space. He provokes, shoves, and gets physical, even knowing how dangerous that could be. Bruce tries to keep it together. He gives a warning, tells the guy this is a bad idea, but Talbot keeps going. On the floor, pinned down, Bruce drops a straight line. "Talbot, you're making me angry." That's the final warning. What makes this scene different isn't just the Hulk showing up, it's how Ang Lee shoots the moment. The scene is filmed like panels from a comic book. When the Hulk finally emerges, Talbot stops being a bully and becomes a terrified spectator. The monster doesn't destroy him, he just kicks him out the window and walks away. The Crush Hand. In Brightburn, the whole idea is to flip the Superman myth on its head. A couple from a small town finds a baby that fell from the sky and raises him as their son. Everything looks like the classic origin story of a hero until it doesn't anymore. Brandon starts showing superhuman powers, but instead of compassion, what grows inside him is coldness. At school, there's a trust exercise in gym class. A student falls backward and the others catch them. When it's Brandon's turn, Caitlin just lets him drop, and it's not out of nowhere. She's already scared of him because he broke into her room before. On top of that, she calls him a pervert in front of everyone. Maximum humiliation. The teacher tells her to help him up. She reaches out her hand, Brandon grabs it and squeezes. And here's the key point. This is the definitive turning point. Up until then, you could still tell yourself he was just confused. After this, there's no more doubt. Unlike Superman, who discovers his power and chooses to protect, Brandon discovers his power and chooses to hurt. Destroyed truck. In Man of Steel, the story shows Clark Kent for a while before he officially becomes Superman. He's still traveling the country, working anonymously, trying to figure out where he fits in the world. Clark is working at a roadside diner. Everything's fine until a truck driver starts harassing one of the waitresses. Rude, invasive comments. That uncomfortable vibe nobody wants to see. Clark steps in calmly. No threats, just asks the guy to stop. The truck driver decides to get in his face, pours beer on Clark's head, makes a scene in front of everyone. And here's the key moment in the scene. Clark doesn't react. He could end it in a second, but he chooses to take it silently because if he loses control, he exposes who he really is. That self-control is the real superpower here. But the story doesn't exactly end there. When the truck driver goes outside, he finds his rig completely skewered by massive wooden logs in the parking lot. Clark didn't hit him, didn't hurt anyone, but he left a pretty clear message. This scene is almost a direct nod to Superman 2, which also has a restaurant scene with a bully. Before the next one on the list, enjoying the video? If so, drop a like, it really helps us out, and make sure to subscribe to the channel. The Dunk. In The Amazing Spider-Man, we follow Peter Parker right after the spider bite. He's still figuring out what changed, but already realizes he's stronger, faster, and has insane reflexes. But even before becoming the masked hero, he's still just the weird kid at school. In the gym during class, Flash Thompson, the basketball team captain, ends up getting paint on a classmate's project. When the ball ends up with Peter, Flash tells him to hand it over, but this time, Peter doesn't back down. He holds the ball and basically says, "Come and get it."
Go ahead, take it.
And then the show starts. Peter moves the ball from one hand to the other with ridiculous ease. Flash tries to take it and can't. Peter dribbles, spins, disappears from in front of him, and reappears on the other side. The ball looks glued to his hands. The whole gym starts to notice something's off. The highlight is the dunk. Peter leaps from an impossible distance and slams the ball down so hard that dead silence. Even he's surprised by what he just did. The coolest thing about this scene is the tone. Unlike more dramatic versions of the character, this one plays almost like teenage revenge. He doesn't hurt anyone. He just destroys the bully's ego in public. Quick fun fact, the backboard break was done practically without relying heavily on CGI, so that impact you feel watching the scene is real. The first punch. And it wasn't the first time Flash got humiliated by Peter. In Spider-Man from 2002, after the spider bite, Peter wakes up different, stronger, and more agile, but he still doesn't understand how much things have changed. Flash Thompson, the classic bully, had already been giving Peter a hard time, and on this day, during lunch in the cafeteria, Peter, in still not understanding his powers, accidentally shoots webs and sends a tray of food flying into Flash. He tries to get away, but Flash comes at him in the middle of the hallway, ready to settle it with his fists. And then something iconic happens. For the first time, the spider sense kicks in clearly. Peter sees the fist coming at him like he has all the time in the world. He just dodges, then another swing and another, all with ridiculous ease. Everyone around them stops to watch. Harry Osborn and Mary Jane just stand there, completely lost. Peter even says he doesn't want to fight.
I don't want to fight you, Flash.
I wouldn't want to fight me neither.
He's still trying to process what's happening, but when he grabs Flash's fist and hits back, the most interesting detail here is Peter's reaction. He doesn't celebrate. He gets scared by his own strength and runs off while the others call him a freak. This scene works because it mixes power with fear. Unlike the more playful version in The Amazing Spider-Man, here the moment has real weight. It's the birth of the hero, but also the first sign that great power can spiral out of control. The last Wolverine. Logan makes it clear from the very start that this isn't a colorful superhero movie anymore. Wolverine is old, tired, working as a limo driver near the Mexican border. The opening scene shows him sleeping in the backseat of the car at an abandoned lot. Suddenly, he realizes someone is trying to steal the limo's wheels. A group of criminals thinks they found an easy target. Logan gets out of the car limping, clearly worn down. He coughs, he's slow. He almost begs the guys to just leave. This isn't the explosive Wolverine from before. He tries to talk his way out of it. One of the criminals responds by shooting him point blank. Logan goes down, and it takes him a while to get back up. The healing factor isn't what it used to be. Every movement is a grind. When he finally fights back, the claws come out with difficulty, like even his own body is tired of this life. The fight is unglamorous. He takes care of the threat with raw ferocity, something the earlier films didn't show because of the rating, a detail a lot of people miss on first watch. He uses his own body to shield the car from the bullets. It's not heroism, it's practicality. The repair bill would have been way too high. After it's all over, he just wipes off the blood, gets back in the limo, and goes back to work. This opening tears down the myth. He's not the unstoppable X-Man anymore. He's a broken man holding on to whatever's left of himself. The king of the tank. In Aquaman, before we see adult Arthur Curry saving the world, the film flashes back to 1999 and shows him as a kid on a field trip to the Boston Aquarium. It's one of the first hints that he's not just different. While watching the main tank, two classmates start messing with him. They shove Arthur against the glass, that classic bully move where the guy thinks he's killing it, but they picked the wrong place to pull that. A bull shark in the tank notices the aggression. Out of nowhere, the animal charges the glass with full force. The impact is so hard that the panel starts cracking. Pure panic. Visitors scatter, teachers start yelling, and Arthur? Calm. He turns toward the shark, and instead of fear, he reaches out his hand. His eyes glow faintly. That's when the connection happens. Then comes the moment that gives you chills. The other sea creatures start moving closer. Rays, fish, all lining up behind Arthur as if they're recognizing someone important. The bullies are in shock. Everyone is. This scene isn't just about scaring the bullies. It's about showing that even while living as a human, the ocean already recognizes him as the heir to Atlantis. Free flight. Right at the start of Hancock, we meet a hero who's completely out of the ordinary. He saves people, sure, but he destroys half the city in the process and spends his time drunk and in a bad mood. At one point, he lands in a residential neighborhood where some kids were playing, and one of them mouths off at him. And on top of that, this kid had been bullied Aaron, the son of Ray, the guy who's trying to clean up Hancock's image. Instead of throwing punches, Hancock does something way more absurd.
Call me an asshole one more time.
The kid literally shoots up like he was launched by a rocket and stays up there for a good few seconds. The scene drags it out just long enough to make everyone uncomfortable and laughing nervously at the same time. The detail that makes it hit harder is that Hancock waits until the very last second to catch him on the way down. No injuries, just guaranteed psychological trauma. The sequence mixes comedy and threat in this weird way. It's over the top on purpose. In fact, a lot of people have pointed out how completely unrealistic the physics are in that scene. But that's the whole joke.
This is some of the stuff we're gonna work on. How do you think that comes?
I am vengeance. In The Batman, we follow Bruce Wayne during his second year as a vigilante in Gotham. It's Halloween night. We see a gang in skull face paint surrounding a man at an almost empty subway station. They're pressuring one of their newest members to commit something brutal. But before the first blow lands, something shows up. The gang leader stares into the dark tunnel and something appears. They laugh, treating it like some kind of freak show. The leader asks who it is, but it doesn't answer. The first swing comes, but Batman blocks it and launches into a straight sequence of direct hits. He takes the attacker down, and instead of saying his name, he says, but the beatdown isn't over. There were still plenty of hits left for the other gang members, who got dropped one by one. The strongest detail isn't the beating, it's the victim's reaction. The man who was saved doesn't say thank you. He backs away, terrified, begging Batman not to hurt him. Reeves filmed the hero like a creature of terror. Unlike the calculated elegance of Nolan's trilogy, here we have a Batman driven by raw anger. Don't rob her store. In Venom, we meet Eddie Brock, a washed-up journalist who ends up merging with an alien symbiote called Venom. At the end of the film, after all the chaos with the Life Foundation, we get a small epilogue that defines exactly what kind of anti-hero they're going to be. Eddie walks into Mrs. Chen's store and finds an armed criminal robbing the place. The symbiote then partially takes over and grabs the guy. The voice changes and the face warps. Venom starts threatening the robber, saying he'll rip off his arms, his legs, and his face if he keeps messing with innocent people. The speech is so over the top, it's almost comedic. When the criminal asks what he is, Eddie and Venom answer together.
We are Venom.
And the villain meets a very immediate end.
Eddie? What was that?
Oh, I have a Paris.
Bones counted. In Morbius, Michael Morbius is no longer just the brilliant scientist trying to survive a rare disease. After the experiment with bat DNA goes wrong, he gains strength, speed, and a constant hunger for blood. At one point, while trying to set up a makeshift lab to better understand his condition, he ends up confronting some criminals to get what he needs. During that confrontation, one of the criminals tries to fight back with a knife. Morbius responds without even breaking a sweat. He pins the man's arm and applies pressure to his hand. And the most interesting part is that Morbius doesn't act like an irrational monster. He acts like a doctor. While pressing down on the bones in the hand, he calmly explains that the human hand has 27 bones. He talks about the phalanges, the metacarpals, almost like he's giving a hands-on lecture. This scene works as a statement of identity. Unlike other Marvel characters who celebrate their power, Morbius approaches his own potential with scientific detachment. He's not explosive like Venom, not heroic like Spider-Man. He's clinical and calculated.
6 to 8 weeks of ibuprofen and heal up just fine.
The first day. In Power Rangers from 2017, the story starts with Jason Scott, the typical star football player who threw everything away over a criminal prank and is now under house arrest, about to lose his future. On the other side, we have Billy Cranston, a tech genius, socially awkward, and constantly the target of school. Their first meeting happens in detention. Billy is being messed with by Colt Wallace, a bully who's clearly very comfortable intimidating people he sees as weaker than him. Jason watches. He could look the other way. He's already got way too many problems of his own, but he decides to step in. When the aggressor keeps pushing, Jason does this. Nothing heroic yet, just a warning. He even introduces himself with a smirk, saying it's his first day there and that keeping his distance might be a smart idea. The vibe shifts immediately. The interesting thing is that this scene flips expectations. Jason starts the film as the problem kid, but he's the only one who stands up against the bully. It's almost symbolic of leadership. Before he ever becomes the Red Ranger, he's already acting like someone who protects the group. The turning point. The subway scene in Joker shows exactly when Arthur stops trying to survive the world and starts fighting back against it. It all happens inside an almost empty train car. Three men start harassing a woman. Arthur laughs involuntarily because of his neurological condition. The laughing gets their attention. The woman leaves and he's left alone with the aggressors. The provocation turns into violence. They shove him, knock him down, and start kicking him on the floor. At the peak of the beating, Arthur pulls out the revolver he's been carrying. He shoots the first two men while still inside the car. The third manages to get out when the train stops at the station. Arthur follows him onto the platform and fires again as the man tries to escape up the stairs. After that, there's a clear shift. He doesn't panic. He walks into a public restroom and starts dancing slowly. Right there, it becomes obvious that something has changed inside him. This sequence is widely considered the moment Arthur definitively transforms into the Joker. Phillips drew inspiration from the real-life case of Bernhard Goetz, which took place in New York in the 80s, when a man claimed self-defense after shooting teenagers on the subway. Just a neighbor. In Samaritan, the idea is to play with the myth of the retired hero. The story follows Sam, a kid living in a rundown neighborhood who believes the legendary vigilante Samaritan is still alive. The catch is that he starts to suspect his own grumpy neighbor, Joe Smith, might be this missing hero. The alley scene is the moment that changes everything. Sam gets surrounded by a group of teenagers led by Riza. They shove him, intimidate him, and before long they start laying into him. But Joe shows up out of nowhere. He just blocks, grabs, and tosses the attackers around like it's nothing. One of them even tries to use a knife, but it doesn't matter. Joe is way stronger than that. The most interesting part is that he doesn't go overboard. He could destroy every single one of them, but he doesn't. He just neutralizes the threat, and that's it. It's clear he doesn't want to be a hero. He wants to be left alone. And this is where the film's real angle comes in. Unlike stories like Logan, where the hero is broken physically and emotionally, Joe is still a machine. He's just tired of the world. New look, same machine. In Terminator 2, we meet the T-800 again, once more played by Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's just arrived from the future, sent to protect John Connor, the boy who will one day lead the human resistance against the machines. But before any heroic mission, he needs to handle one basic detail: clothes. Completely naked, he walks into a biker bar, and that's where the most iconic look in 90s action cinema is born. He walks in without a word, scans everyone with that signature digital vision, picks the biggest guy in the place, walks up to him and says he needs the clothes, the boots, and the motorcycle. The biker laughs it off and even puts out his cigar on his chest. Bad call. Within minutes, he walks out in black leather, grabs a shotgun, puts on the sunglasses, and gets on the Harley Davidson. The transformation is complete. The most interesting thing is that this scene echoes the first Terminator, where he also takes clothes by force. But the difference is total. Before, he was the cold villain you ran from. Now he's the cold villain you want to follow. And that look became an eternal reference in pop culture. On screen right now is a video where we show the times superheroes killed the villains. Click and watch. See you there.